you have, but I've never seen that term used by modern day poskim. Maybe I'm wrong, but if you can enlighten me.
I've never done such a search in the Bar-Hayim program either, but I really don't think that's relevant.
Okay.
The question is, if something is new, if something is a hidush, it hasn't been thought of before, hasn't been said before, does that mean that it's not correct?
No.
In the Talmud Bavli, holy in Daf Zayin, it says the opposite. It says, Tamid shamar devar lecha en mezichinotha, or another girsa, en mazhichinotha, which means that even if he's just a Talmid, not a Gaon, who was reciting Shas Baal Peh in Auschwitz, like HaGaon Rav David HaLivni, but Stam a Talmid who's learned for a couple of years in yeshiva, and he has a kushya on something that the Magen Avraham writes, or something that the Rashba writes. He has a kushya, he asks a question. What's the correct approach? To say, who are you to ask questions against the Rashba? Tiyeh b'sheket. Or do you say, let's hear the kushya, and let's think about it, let's see. And if it seems that he's onto something, we take it very seriously, correct?
There is a caveat, though. Right? There is a caveat, and that is, where other people have not necessarily gone, look at over 9, 10, 11 times before you're ready to go forward disagreeing with it.
You're saying that before asking kushya on the Rashba, one should sit on it Shivanikim.
No,
I agree.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying ask, but before one comes to conclusions, sit on it Shiva Nishi.
I agree. I would agree.
Okay, if you stop your inquisitive mind, then then that stops you from thinking. In other words, before you conclude, you can ask, but before you come to conclusions, it's proper to sit on it Shiva Nikim.
I would agree with you entirely.
Okay, I mean, there's a question that
I have no problem with what you just said.
Okay, I saw on the Rav's site that he concludes that Y is not one of the Chamesh Minei Daga on the Rav's website.
I'll address that in one moment. I wanted to say something because about an issue that you raised earlier. I didn't get to answer that question because you mentioned the question of saying the bracha lishmor huko on removing tefillin, and you said this is against the Beth Yosef and many Rishonim and what have you, correct?
Rambam and the Bab.
All right. Well, the Rambam doesn't say anywhere that you can't say this bracha. He just doesn't mention this bracha. All right. Let's begin with that. But it's not only the Talmud Yerushalmi which makes it exceedingly clear that all the Chachamim in Eretz Yisrael made the bracha upon removing tefillin. It's also discussed in the Talmud Bavli, Masechet Nida Daf Nun Aleph, and the Ramban, Chidushei Ramban, Masechet Nida Daf Nun Aleph, discusses this sugya at length, and he writes as follows: V'ra'inu l'Rabbeinu Hai Gaon Zal. Rabbeinu Hai Gaon Zal is not from Eretz Yisrael. He was the Rosh Yeshiva of Pumbedita, the most Bavli of the Bavli Yeshivot. Shekatav Bahad Divnei Ma'arava La Nahinan Hachi B'Metivatha. It's not our minhag here in the yeshiva. Umiyu, however, Iba'e Inesh L'M'ibad K'Bnei Ma'arava Shapir Dami. But if a person wishes to behave like Bnei Ma'arava and say the bracha, he may do so. This is said by Rav Hai Gaon from Yeshivat Pumbedita in Bavel. So why, if and the Ramban apparently agrees, he doesn't express a single word of disagreement. He doesn't quote anyone who says otherwise either. So if the Rav Hai Gaon, who didn't have this minhag, he himself didn't say the bracha, and it wasn't the general practice in Bavel, but it was in Eretz Yisrael, and Rav Hai Gaon, the last of the Gaonei Bavel, says it's mutar to do so if you wish to, why would anyone, such as yourself, have a problem with that?
Because after the advent of Shulchan Aruch, I think that halacha was established in a certain way, and I have a problem when someone disregards based on his natiyah. I'm just being honest. I have a problem when someone disregards conclusions of the Shulchan Aruch in a way where none of the other Meforshim went that way.
Did you daven Shaharith this morning? That's a rhetorical question. I'm sure you did.
Yes.
Did you say the bracha noten la ya'ef koach?
Yes.
The Shulchan Aruch says not to.
I'm aware of that. But others say that you do say.
In other words, there is no such thing as halacha k'Shulchan Aruch. There is something else. And that is that there are different halachic paradigms today and 500 years ago when the Shulchan Aruch was written. And they have, to some extent, or a large extent, they remain in place. What I'm referring to is that in Ashkenaz, or in Europe more generally, 500, 600, 700 years ago, the Jews in those countries were following, as a rule, certain poskim. Very obviously, those poskim who had lived in those same countries earlier, people like Rabbeinu Tam and Riba Tosafot and the Rosh and Marami Rothenburg, etc. Jews in other parts of the world, such as Spain, North Africa, at that same time, had for centuries been following other poskim. Again, those who had lived amongst them in those communities, in those countries, such as the Rif, the Rambam, the Rashba, etc. It is a fallacy to believe that the Shulchan Aruch actually created any kind of new reality in the Jewish world. It's entirely fallacious. What actually happened is as follows. The Shulchan Aruch...
I mean, you are aware that there are Gedolei HaPoskim that have said, Kibalnu Piskei Maran, Gilu Elef Poskim.
Yes, but there are all those poskim, all those rabbanim who said that, are Sfaradim. The Rama never said such a thing. The Ashkenazim never said such a thing.
And there are people from...
And when the Shach disagrees with the Mahaber and the Rama on the Sugya of Tokpo Kohen, he's not accepting that klal, correct? And when the Gra disagrees with both the Mahaber and the Rama in hundreds of places in the Shulchan Aruch, he's not agreeing with that system, correct? So I'm hardly suggesting something new. When the Rogatchover writes thousands of Tshuvot L'Halacha, U'Lema'aseh, without even mentioning the Shulchan Aruch, he's not apparently agreeing with that system. So we have... And I could mention other names as well. I could mention the Tshuvot of the Netziv, Halacha L'Maaseh, and I could mention...
I mean, even when you have a Sfek Sfeika on one day, when you have a Sfek Sfeika, one day is Keneged Shulchan Aruch, the Gedolei HaPoskim of Ashkenaz have rejected that, the ability to combine that in a Sfek Sfeika.
I would disagree. I would say that the Gedolei HaPoskim of the Ashkenazim, from time immemorial and down to the present day, such as the Hazon Ish, where they felt it was clear to them and they felt that it was necessary to point out that this accepted psak or this psak of the Shulchan Aruch or the Rama or the Shach or the Taz is mistaken, they would get up and say so. And that's
only when they thought it was mistaken. But again,
of course, why would they say it otherwise?
No, okay, let's go back to what I was saying. What I was saying is to be mitzaref a deya that they did not think was mistaken, as a Sfek Sfeika, where it's
I'm not playing arithmetic now, being mesaref this to that.
But you see
no,
the
that's not.
that
No,
they
no, to me, that's
okay.
not the issue. The issue is to first of all understand what happened with the Shulchan Aruch. In actual fact, nothing happened. People have been conditioned and taught, maybe one should say brainwashed, to think that the halacha is like the Shulchan Aruch because the Jewish world accepted the Shulchan Aruch. But actually no such thing ever happened. The Shulchan Aruch, Rabbi Yosef Karo Zal, wrote the Kesef Mishneh, the Beit Yosef, and based on all that and other things, he wrote the Shulchan Aruch as a kind of Kisul Shulchan Aruch. It's actually a fairly brief work.
I believe the Kesef Mishneh came afterwards. The Kesef Mishneh was written last. After the
to be honest, I don't recall right now, but it may be so. The point is that in the Shulchan Aruch, he summed up his halachic system, or his Piskei Halacha, and we know from his Hakdamah to the Beit Yosef, he says explicitly that for different reasons that he enumerates there, which one can argue with, and the Rama does argue with his reasoning for using the system, he chose 3 Rishonim.
Which he didn't even follow, by the way.
Of course.
Many times he goes with the
well, that's precise. That's one of the things I'm about to say. He took 3 Rishonim, the Rif, the Rosh, and the Rambam, and he says, I will follow 2 out of 3. If they're unanimous, there's no problem. If there's no unanimity, then I will follow 2 of the 3. As you yourself just pointed out very correctly, there are tens, if not more, instances where the Shulchan Aruch himself does not follow that rule. And if you examine those instances, you will discover